Okay, gents, let's now focus on the US men's national team. It's the international break. That means that there are 3 huge World Cup qualifiers coming up for the USA. Key qualifiers. Nick's rubbing his hands there. He's looking forward to this. My question to you, Nick Mendiola, is what are the key questions for this US men's national team? And bigger picture, what are the expectations for this side? Are they too high? Are they too low? What are we thinking going into this international break?
Well, let's start with what I'm looking at this time. I want to see what happens with Weston McKennie. That's the big question for me is we still really don't know what happened. It doesn't really matter at this point. What matters is he going to be in Greg Berhalter's squad? I think the drop off from him is significant. I think him and Tyler Adams together is a big deal for any team, and I hope we get to see that. I have questions at how the fullbacks and how a John Brooks list, not that he was great last break, center back is going to deal with Mikel Antonio. Specifically, Panama and Costa Rica, I think they'll be fine, but Jamaica has added some really good pieces there. And frankly, I think this whole break is going to answer some rather big questions about Greg Berhalter. Again, I've backed him in terms of thinking he's a good coach, a tactician, a guy who knows what he's doing. But personnel-wise, this is a big one for him without some very big players.
It is, right? And Andy, Jamaica, Panama, Costa Rica, tough games. These are all teams who are going to be around where the US finish in the table and the standings in CONCACAF World Cup qualifying. The last window, El Salvador, Canada, and obviously Honduras. I think this is tougher now. I think these 3 games are tougher, and you will be without Christian Pulisic and Gio Reyna due to injury. We know that. But what are the key areas and key questions for you? Because it seems like there's a couple of areas on the pitch, like Nick just mentioned there at centre-back, where it's become a problem for the US over the years and just real weakness points, right?
Yeah. For context, I think all 3 of these teams the U.S. will play this window will be in the battle for 4th place for the Interconfederation playoff spot. So that's the quality that they're coming up against against this time around. So they do have to step up a level. It's nice that they were able to ease into it a little bit and get those 2, the disappointing draws out of the way early, finish with a win, have a little bit of momentum, but the injuries, hurt that a lot. And so my big question is, it's going to be up top. Where is the chance creation? But even more importantly, where's the ball progression going to come from? Because that doesn't just affect what you do on the offensive end, that affects what you do defensively. And if they're able to maintain possession and have meaningful possession, not in their own defensive third or even in the middle third, but really get into the final third and prompt and probe a little bit and just cause some uncomfortable moments for their opponents, that makes life so much easier on the defense because you're then forcing the other team's defense to sit back in a little bit deeper. The midfield drops in. The forwards are not quite as high. They're doing a little bit more defensive work as well. And that takes the pressure off of what I think will probably be Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman against Jamaica, which I think is a pretty good matchup for those 2. They're both good in the air. They're both strong. They are MLS defenders. Whatever you think the stereotype of an MLS defender is, very good and athletic, can cover a lot of space, okay on the ball, but not great, really strong in the air, no nonsense, not going to be pushed around. That's exactly what those 2 are. And so I think that's the perfect pairing there. So that one kind of answers itself, and Brooks excusing himself almost from the camp maybe makes things a little bit easier for Berhalter, because if he's there, you kind of have to play him because of where he plays his club ball, but he's not been good. He's not been good at all. So I'm just worried about without Christian Pulisic, without Gio Reyna, where's the chance creation going to come from? Because it's going to be the wing backs again. I think that's where it's going to come from. It's going to be Dest and it's going to be Cannon, because you have to go with the 3 in the back because the wing backs are going to bring the ball forward, because you don't have the Pulisic or the Reyna. It's going to be a little bit more pressure on Adams and McKennie in the middle to kind of set them up. So it's going to be a balancing act, I think. And so that's a lot of questions. That's a lot of questions to answer in 3 games over 8 days.
A lot more questions than Greg Berhalter would have liked to have had, I'm sure, with these 3 big qualifiers coming up. And it really sets the tone for November as well, with Mexico coming up. And we all know how big that game is going to be in determining how the US get on and how the rest of qualifying really goes. But you mentioned a great point there. Adams and McKennie, if McKennie starts, we think he probably will, and just out of necessity rather than, I think Berhalter would have probably liked to keep him out of this squad and prove a point further, but he doesn't have that luxury with Reyna and Pulisic being out injured and others. But I think Adams and McKennie, they have to set the tone. They have to dictate the tempo, and this is when we'll find out how good they are. And they should dominate these games in midfield. They should be able to, like you said, keep the ball, possess it, and then move on to the attacking third and set up attacks. And I want to see McKennie breaking into the box to finish off chances. Tyler Adams can do that as well, but he's very positionally aware, astute, good on the ball. And you have to see some from those two guys as leaders with Pulisic missing to really stand tall in these qualifiers. And I think we're going to see how good those guys really are. But Andy grimaced a bit when I said about McKennie and maybe not playing. Nick, what do you think? Do you think he comes straight back into the starting lineup? Does he have to? The situation it's been cleared up. Greg Berhalter has talked about it. It's water under the bridge as far as he's concerned, but we don't know any more details about what actually happened in Nashville in that situation. So he has to regain the trust of his teammates and the coaching staff, right? So you see him coming straight back in?
As much as I can see it, again, not knowing what happened. If it really is water under the bridge after one break, then if he's there, you start him. I just don't. You've already punished him. You sent him back home. You made him answer to it. He's better than your alternative. You play him. And I guess we'll learn a lot about. I just don't see a national team as the same sort of disciplinary front as a club team, right? It's you want this guy to keep showing up and be made available to you. And at some point you wonder, we know he's had his troubles in Turin, or minor troubles in Turin, but will they be like, hey, dude, don't go back. Like, what are you doing? We're trying to win Serie A here. We're trying to get the Scudetto back, and you're going to go there and be an also-ran to Kellen Acosta because you messed up. So I think this is, again, a really trying window for the head coach.
Without Christian Pulisic, then, Andy, who is going to spark the attack? And without Gio Reyna as well, because Brendan Aronson, Matthew Hoppe, there's some good players there who can play underneath the forward, and we'll get onto who's going to start up top. But that's a big job. That's a huge role. Areola, Sebastian Lletget. There's a lot of players there, but no disrespect to them, that's a huge drop-off from Reyna and Pulisic, right?
That's a big job. That's a bit of an understatement right there for sure. I think this is Brendan Aronson's opportunity to really have a coming-out party. He was pretty good last month when he got his opportunities. You know, the attack wasn't great on the whole, but a lot of the best moments had his fingerprints all over them. And so I look at this as an opportunity where Berhalter goes to him and says, all right, you're on the left wing. It's probably where he's most comfortable. You're going to be cutting inside. You're going to get everything kind of funneled towards you, especially if the ball's coming from the wing backs. A lot of the time it's going to be on the left with Serginho Dest or Anthony Robinson. He's going to get a lot of opportunities there. And I think he's going to make the most of them this time around. He's had a strong start to the club season back in Austria. And he's probably ready to make a move on up the club ladder as well. Maybe not in January, but probably next summer. And this is going to be a really good opportunity for him to do that. There's not a thing about his game that I don't like. There's nothing that's missing. He has all of the vision, and he has the next level vision that a lot of U.S. players have not had. A lot of good U.S. players, I should say, have not had over the years. Players have been very, very productive. He just has something else mentally, and just the freedom that he seems to have when he's on the field. He's not thinking. He's just operating, and that's the biggest difference, I think, between him and a lot of the other players that could be options to help the attack. With Timothy Weah, start season for him. He's not coming in form. He's not coming in fit, none of that stuff. So it kind of does put a lot of pressure on a 21-year-old in Brendan Aronson, but I think he's ready. I think he's ready for it. I hope he is.
Nick, the front of that, I mean, creating chances could be a problem, but who's going to put them away? Because Ricardo Pepi, obviously sensational against Honduras. Debut goal, assist, really helped surge the US there to that big win last time out. Is he ready to lead the line, or are we looking at Zardes to come in? I'm obviously still surprised that Josh Sargent and Jordan Peacock weren't called up to this squad. Bill Harter said that was because of the style of play and the style of games they would have. But, I mean, is it Pepe's line to lead? Is he the main man now at 18 years of age to start for the USA up top?
So I'm torn because I'm not quite sure whether we're going to see whether it's a better idea to have Pepe be the guy who comes off the bench and invigorates the team, or whether it's nice having Giasse Zardes to come off the bench because you know what you're going to get with him pretty much every single game. I think Tim Weah has a little bit of an X factor here as well. We know he is versatile in terms of the way he attacks. He's a big kid. And I think I'm actually kind of circling him. And I don't want to not answer your question by going with a little bit of what about. But to me, Andy's mentioned their names twice. And you have two, Dest and Anthony Robinson here, I think can be as pivotal to the playmaking as anyone else.
Yep.
I want to challenge these teams both with crosses. So you want to have that option. But I love Dest getting to the end line. And, so many players, so many wing backs or right backs, they get in that position and you're sure a cross is coming. Not him.
No.
He might meg you. He might try something fancy. He may get a shot off. And again, I'm not completely sold on him as being a superstar, but in CONCACAF, I really like him in this spot.
Yeah, and we actually have a little bit of personnel to play that way, I think, this time around. And that's what we didn't have during the last window was the center forward who gets onto the end of crosses. As much as we like Josh Sargent and what he could be, he doesn't do that. Jordan Pefok a little bit. He was the one I was surprised about that wasn't in the squad because he is the physical presence that we don't really have at that center forward position. But with Gyasi Zardes back in there, Jossie's always looking to get on the end of a cross. Gyasi loves a cross. If you want to put down any kind of wager on during this international window, find whatever the over under is on the U.S. crosses to Gyasi Zardes and hammer the over because it's gonna be way over. I'm preparing people. Get ready for a lot of Gyasi Zardes and a lot of Kellen Acosta over the next week. It's just what's going to happen, and it's probably going to work out. You're not going to like it beforehand. It's not going to be the prettiest on the field, but it's going to get the results that I think the U.S. men's national team needs.
I like this because we're agreeing with each other a lot on these big points here, so much so that when Nick was on the full screen there, I could hear Andy making a lot of noises in agreement. I wasn't sure if he's agreeing or just tucking into some pie and ice cream, but yeah, you definitely agreed with him there. And I'm with you guys. I think that the way the US plays and the actual game plan is maybe more important than the personnel who are going to be out there for these games in terms of the strategy. We saw at Honduras, the first half didn't work. It was terrible. Switched it up, went to something a bit more simple, get the ball wide, whip it in. We've got quality players in wide positions. And I think, keep the ball wide, right, for the US because the issues are at centre-back, clearly. Maybe Richards comes in, Miles Robinson's inexperienced, Walker Zimmerman is a decent centre-back, but the issues are in the centre of the pitch there. So keep it wide. And like you said, whipping crosses, and then they got players, even if it isn't Zardes or Pepe finishing it off, Aronson or Tim Weah coming in or Matthew Hopper, they got players there who can finish off chances. And that's really exciting to see how they're going to switch things up because I think they're going to have to against some of these teams. Playing on the road at Panama is going to be difficult. And then we know what Jamaica is going to bring. They're going to be direct, playing the ball up to Antonio and letting him run free on the counter, just like West Ham does. So it's unknown quantities, I think, for some of these teams they're going to be coming up against. And for some of the players that are going to be playing for the US, it's going to be the first time they've encountered this. And that's difficult in World Cup qualifiers to rise to that occasion. And yeah, it's a little bit daunting, I think, for some of those guys. So I'm intrigued to see the character come out. And I think that the overall positive vibes that are seeping through the team after they won at Honduras, they took a lot of pressure off them. You see the video that US Soccer released after that. Bill Harter and the players were fired up after that win at Honduras. Let's just say that. And that really got them out of jail because had they drawn that game, 3 points from those first three games would have been nowhere near good enough. They got 5 points from those first three games, which was pretty average, I'd say, from the teams that they played. So, Nick, these three games against Jamaica, Panama, and Costa Rica, what's a good points haul for the USA?
7. 7. I think
minimum.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I guess you could lose in Panama, and something could happen, something dodgy. But I actually target the 7th point being the Jamaica game because I think they're going to beat Costa Rica. I think Panama had some good results last break. Don't get me wrong. And I don't want to overlook that because they've done it. They've even scored goals that didn't go in the net in order to get the U.S. out of the last World Cup. But I look at these three teams, and Jamaica scares me. The first time in all of these 6 games that we've talked about now, going back to the last break, the first time I kind of shuddered and thought, oh no, was Antonio on that counter because I found it very difficult to imagine him not getting one or one very good chance against. And I love Zimmerman. I really like Walker Zimmerman. I think I probably rate him higher than most. And Miles Robinson has really impressed me as well. That said, you go back to that Honduras game. I feel like Miles Robinson had a chance in each game to put away a header because he gets himself to those spaces. I think they missed some chances. I think they could have run away with the Canada game at times. They just didn't play well. And I think they did run away ultimately with Honduras, but that could have been two halves. What I'm worried about is the El Salvador game, which I'm still scratching my head about. And I have to think that was an out management moment. And that's, again, why I circle back to this, and I'm going to dwell on it. This is a 3-match window for Greg Berhalter. Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up.
There you go. There you go. Words of warning there from Nick Mendiola towards Greg Berhalter.
I'm sure he's terribly concerned.
Well, you never know. You never know. Seems to be listening to a lot. Andy Edwards, what about you? 7 points from this? Is that bare minimum for the USA?
No, I think they get 6 this time. I do think they lose in Panama. I was really impressed, and I just happened, I think, by happenstance, to catch both of the really good results for Panama during the last window. They hammered Jamaica 3-0, and obviously they didn't have the full complement of new players that they've added and everything. But then they went and they got a point at home against Mexico, and that, I know Mexico wasn't at their best in the first 3 games, but that's a good result as well. I think they're probably at this point, I put them slight favorites to finish 4th behind Mexico, US, Mexico, whoever's 3rd, maybe even finish 3rd. Who knows? But I just think that's a really good team, but they have to hold serve at home. That has to be the number one thing. It has to be the expectation going into every game is we're at home, we're going to win this game. And not just we're going to win this game, but we're going to dominate this game. We're going to control the way that this game is played. That's what I want to see as much as anything from this team, because whatever the results were a month ago, the 5 points, it wasn't what we wanted. It still puts them on a path to get to the World Cup. And so that's what I'm still focused on. It's how is this team going to grow and evolve and gel and come together to be whatever the final product is in about 15 months time, 14 months time, 13 months time. I can't believe how close the 2022 World Cup is. It's 13 months away.
That's crazy to think about. I'm actually going to go with 5 points. I think it's going to be very similar to the last cycle of games. I can see them tying at home against Jamaica, doing the same away at Panama, and then kind of closing it out with a much-needed win, scrappy win against Costa Rica at home. That's my big prediction. Take that for what you will, but it's tough. It's tougher. I think it's always tougher than we think it's going to be, even with the talent the US has. The game management, the in-game management, we still have to remember this is a very young and inexperienced US team. Hasn't been in this situation before. And yeah, I think there's some players on all 3 of these teams for Jamaica, Panama, and Costa Rica that can expose the USA's weakness, which is at centre-back. And we didn't talk about it a lot, but a goalkeeper as well. We don't know who out of Turner or Stefan's actually going to start in these games. Stefan's a bit rusty, and Turner did well last time, but by his own admission, he struggled in MLS since the last international window. So let's wait and see. The main thing is there's a lot of questions around the US men's national team, a lot of intriguing ones, and it's going to keep us busy over the international break. So 3 lads you can see on the screen will keep you covered all the latest US men's national team news. It's going to be fun on Telemundo Deportes and NBC Universo, our partners. They'll have live streams of plenty of these CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers. So we'll keep you covered. Across NBC's family of channels, we'll have you covered with these massive, massive World Cup qualifiers. Gents, that went quickly this week. Pro Soccer Talk's done for this week. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And we'll speak to you all very soon indeed. Thanks, guys.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series, and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches, and much more.